Welcome back to the Low Poly series, Year 10, if you've been watching. Now, a lot of my inspiration, I'm not the most artistic person. I get it from looking up other stuff online and then trying to replicate it. So I'm going to attempt to replicate something like this little water tower here and show you the process that I would go through to make this. So if I look at this model here, I can see that there's 4 legs and there's 4 kind of brace things. So what I might do is actually just make one of them and duplicate it 4 times. The bit on top should be pretty simple to make as a cylinder. And this would be a cone on top with possibly a subdivision, or actually you can't subdivide a cone. So I will use a ring cut, and I will use a cylinder for that, and we'll apply some materials to it. It'll look pretty good when we're done. And so we're going to make a few of these low poly assets, and then we're going to build a scene up in Godot, which is a game engine. So we're actually not going to make a game, but the purpose of these assets, I'm going to show you what they could be used for and how we can import it into a game engine and actually use it to make a game. So let's have a look. I'm going to keep that as my reference just over here. I might see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Nope. And open image in new tab. There we go. So I've got that reference image, and I'm going to delete the cube here. Probably shouldn't have, because I'm going to add it straight back in. And then we are going to create one of the legs here. So I will go into edit mode straight away. I'm going to scale this in so it's quite small, and then I'm going to scale it up along the Z axis like that. So I get this kind of a tall leg thing. From here, I'm going to go into top-down view, so I can click this Z mode there. I may actually switch into bottom view, so that is, I'll click the other dot, which is that one there. And I'm going to put it in face mode and just grab this bottom face. I can make sure I'm grabbing it just by rotating out of there, put it back into face mode, and I'm going to get it and move it about half a unit, so it's roughly in the center there. Okay, that's going to give me a slight angle on that, going outwards. So that's looking pretty good. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and add another cube. I'm going to scale that one down. I'm going to move it GZ. I'm going to move it up to about here. GY in this case, scale it down a little bit more. And GY. Kind of get it in the middle there, scale that down, grab that face and bring it out, so GX. I'm not too worried about how far I bring it out, that looks pretty good there. Then I'm going to add in another cube. I'll scale that one down, GZ, bring it up to about here. It's inside the model still, so I'll move it along to there. GZ, move it up to about there. And then I'm going to rotate this one. Actually, I'm not going to rotate it. I am going to, it's not quite right, so I can use the number pad to move this around. Just deselect all of that. Hit L to just select that. And I kind of want it to be roughly in line with this. So when I pull it down, it kind of goes into it. So I'm just going to select that face. So just that face there. I'll go into side view. I'll hit E and bring it out like that, and then hit G and Z and bring it down, and I'll position it inside that one. And when I've done that, I'm going to hit L, grab a linked duplicate of that, and here's the tricky bit, because I am going to duplicate this. So Shift D, I'm going to hit R, Y I think, and then 180. Nope. R, Y, Z 180. So RZ 180. That should rotate it around like that. I can hit G, and I'll just kind of position it about there. Now I'll have to check this out and make sure it's actually fairly accurate. But I've got one of the components here. Now I can duplicate this now, and I'm going to use Alt D to duplicate this. So Alt D, and I'm going to move it along the X axis to about there, and I'm going to rotate it along the Z axis, negative 90 degrees in this case. Okay, and then G, I'll move it back along the X axis so it intersects with that there. Okay, then I'll do it again. So Alt D, move this one along the y-axis, and I'm just kind of guessing here. I'm not being exactly perfect with it, but I am moving it along those axes because it'll be really hard to do otherwise. And then lastly, Alt D. I could have used a modifier to rotate this perfectly. This one here, I'll move it back along that x-axis, and then GY into there. All right, so now I've got that kind of a frame, which if I look at this one, it looks like that bottom part looks pretty good, looks pretty close to it. Okay, what I can do is I can go into this and I can move this upwards a little bit more. And I could move it along the axis. I'm not going to. I'm just going to hit E and move it up directly upwards. It's going to give it a little bit more volume there. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in the mesh. This is going to be a cylinder. Oh, I did get the cylinder. I thought I clicked icosphere. And I'm going to change it to 16 sides. And we're going to scale. I'll go through tab. Oops. Now, this is going to be a little bit weird, and you'll see what happens in a minute, but I'm going to scale it in object mode, which I don't normally do. Scale it up, move it like that, GZ, move that up. These here, I'm actually going to join them all together. I don't think it'll let me. Yep, it will let me. Okay. And then I'm going to right click on them and click Set Origin to Geometry, like that. And then I'm going to set origin geometry to, then I'm going to set this here back to 0, 0, 0. And I thought there was a way I could do this. Origin to center of mass, origin to geometry, geometry to origin. Nope. Oh, yes, of course. That is the origin there. So I'm going to set the geometry to the origin, which will move that there. I can then move this up, GZ, and move it up so it's kind of on the ground there. Move this one up like that. We'll scale that one in a little bit and hit S and Z and scale it down so we've got that platform there. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to create the thing that goes around the outside of it, the fence. So let's go ahead and add a mesh, a cube. I'm just going to isolate this one for now. Just looking at it top down though, it looks like this comes out roughly 2.5, just to about 2, a little bit past 2 units. So I'm going to remember that. Did that seem to be like more units? Nope, 2 units, 2 and a bit units. Okay, let's go isolate that. Hit tab, and I'll model this. So I'll scale this one down quite a bit and hit it on that Z axis. And I'm going to keep this one pretty simple. So I'm just going to do a ring cut here, like that. And I will select this face and extrude it outwards. And I'm going to do a few ring cuts on this, and you'll see why in a minute, maybe 2 or 3. Okay, so this is going to be part of our thing that goes around. And then what I'm going to do is select this whole thing and hit G and Y, and we're going to move it to roughly where it should be, so about 2.5 units out. It may actually be a bit big, so I'm going to scale it down a little bit more, like that. That looks probably pretty good there. We can scale it up in a minute if it's not right. And I'm going to use a tool called the spin tool. And now this spin tool will let me spin this whole shape around like that. That's actually not what I want, so let's not do that. Let's go ahead and add a modifier. We're going to call it an array modifier, and I'm going to add a bunch of these, maybe 12 or so. And then I'm going to add another modifier, which is called, I'm pretty sure it's a simple deform. And this simple deform tool, I can get it off the spin tool. That didn't work the way I had intended for it to work. I'm going to bend this, but I don't want to bend it along the x-axis. I want to actually bend it around the z-axis, I think. Yep, the z-axis. And in this case, I think I want to go negative for some reason. So it looks like negative 360. I'm not sure why all my numbers have had been negative, but negative 360 should bend that around. Now, to make this look better, I'm going to turn the number of the count up. Okay, the bigger the count, the more of them there are. Now that's actually really big. So what I'm probably going to have to do is scale this back up again, so that when I scale it down, it gets a little bit thinner, and we'll bring that down like that, because I suspect that this is not going to work very well. So I'll go back to unisolated mode, and I need to scale this down, but this here, I need to move it over there. So I'm going to set the origin, the geometry to the origin. Oops, I'm going to apply this here first. I'm going to apply the array and then apply the bend. That way I can set the geometry to the origin. I can scale it down. I can hit GZ and bring it up and scale it down a bit more. GZ, sit it on there. Now there are multiple ways I could have done that, but that was a way that automated the process for me and made it fairly efficient. Now the reason I put those extra subdivisions in here was so that it did a nice bend around here. Otherwise these edges would be straight, then bend, then straight, then bend, and so on. Okay, next thing is we're going to add in a mesh, and of course it's going to be a cylinder. I can just pretty much move this one straight up. I'll scale it upwards, GZ, and I don't need to do much else with that. That's pretty straightforward there. Add mesh. We'll add in, I'm going to add in another cylinder. You might think, well, let's add a cone, but I'll show you what happens when I add a cone. So I'm not going to do anything with it. We'll scale this cone up, but not along the z-axis. So that was Shift Z, which will eliminate the z-axis scaling, which means it only scales along the x and y. So I can do that, but now I want to add like an extra thing around here, like on the picture, so that when I go to add some colors, I've got some extra vertices to work with. But if I try to go Control R and do a ring cut, I can't, because you can't ring cut a face with 3 sides. Now, you're saying, what has 3 sides? This has like 32 sides. Each of these triangles has 3 sides. It can't be done. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to add in a mesh, a cylinder. And I'll keep the same number of vertices that I have. Do that. I'm going to scale upwards. I'll hit Shift Z again, so it just scales out like that. I don't want to go too far. And I'll go into edit mode, select that top face, and scale that inwards, kind of like our tree, and down. Now that's going to give me a point there, but when I hit Control R, it lets me add that extra ring cut. So that's what I want. Then I can go ahead and add some materials to it, and pretty good to go. Now if I wanted to add a ladder, that's not a difficult task to do. In fact, I can add that really quickly because I'm not going to color this one here. You can apply materials to it. I've got other videos on how to apply materials, so you can go ahead and do that, but I'm going to go ahead and create a ladder. So let's have a look at this. Add cube. I'm going to keep this one really simple. I'm going to isolate this, and we're going to hit tab. I'm going to scale it down nice and small. Hit SZ, and we'll move it along the x-axis. I'm going to do a ring cut here, and then another ring cut underneath it. And then I will extrude this out. And you might think, why don't I keep going? Well, because I'm going to make it easier on myself by adding a modifier called mirror. You see that modifier is currently going along the x-axis. If yours looks like that, it might be that you need to untick the x and tick the y, but that's what you want. And you want to make sure merge is on, and I'm going to hit G and move that into this here. Turn on clipping as well in this case, so that it won't go past it. Now I've got kind of parts of a ladder. Easy, add modifier, array, but I'm going to array it along the Z axis. Close that mirror part. So the Z axis is this one here. It's going up. What I have done, or will need to do, is select this bottom, this face here, move it down, and maybe move this one up a little bit so that I don't get as much space between those, and then turn that on. And now this is a pretty kind of simple ladder. It doesn't really fit the theme. You might be able to come up with something better for it, but I will move that to there. I can rotate it along the x-axis a little bit, position it there, and then we've got our pretty low poly. It's in total, it says it's only 36 tries. That's not right. It's about 3,000 tries, which is fairly low poly, but most of those tries are in this bit going around here, which we could definitely have improved upon. I'm not too happy with that, and it's also in the ladder. So there's a lot of optimization that could be done, deleting faces that are hidden that the user would never see, such as the bottom of this cylinder, the bottom of these bits here, the parts inside here which interconnect. There is a lot of improvement that could be done, but overall it looks pretty good. Go ahead and texture it. Take some time to texture that model, apply some materials to it. You could apply different materials to each panel, like this one here. Different material down here, different materials on the top there, to give it some character.